The order exists before anyone speaks about it. It arrives already complete, already formatted, already aligned with the language the system recognizes. Its sentences are short, its verbs are firm. There is no room inside it for interpretation. It does not ask to be understood, it asks to be transmitted. It moves first as paper, then as sound, then as motion. It passes through hands that do not linger, eyes that do not pause, mouths that repeat without alteration. Each transfer strips nothing away and adds nothing in return. The wording remains intact, the intent remains intact, the authority remains intact. The order does not slow as it travels, it accelerates. No one wonders why it was written this way. The phrasing is familiar. The structure has been seen before, used before, obeyed before. It fits into the system cleanly, like a component manufactured to exact specification. There is comfort at fit. Comfort is not questioned. The order is acknowledged in the same way at every level. Confirmation is returned upward. Receipt is logged. Timestamps are applied. Each acknowledgement is identical to the last, differing only in the mechanical details that prove compliance. The language does not change. It is not discussed. It is not examined. It is not weighed against circumstance. It is accepted as a fixed object moving through a fixed structure. Around it, the environment continues its routine. Equipment is checked because it is always checked. Schedules are followed because they are always followed. Signals are sent because signals must always be sent. The order does not interrupt these actions. It blends into them. It becomes another task, another instruction among many, indistinguishable in tone from those that govern maintenance, movement, and timing. There are no raised voices when it is read aloud. There are no lowered voices either. The delivery is neutral, practiced, efficient. Each repetition sounds the same, as if the system itself is speaking through different mouths. The order does not carry urgency in its volume. Its urgency is implied by its existence. Those who receive it do not see its origin. They do not need to. Authority does not require visibility to function. It requires only continuity. The order has that continuity. It has been validated by passage alone. As it descends, the order becomes action. Boots move because the words indicate movement. Materials are allocated because the words require allocation. Timelines are adjusted because the words specify timing. Each response is precise. Each response is correct. Each response is recorded. There is no space in this process for doubt. Doubt would require interruption, and interruption is not part of the design. The system is built to carry instructions forward, not to hold them still. The order is moving, and therefore it is right. By the time the last acknowledgement is returned, the order no longer feels new. It feels established, settled, inevitable. It has been absorbed into the rhythm of the structure that received it. What it will cause is no longer a question anyone is positioned to ask. The system has accepted the order completely. What follows has already been decided. The structure does not announce itself. It does not need to. It is present in the spacing between responses, in the order in which voices speak, in the way silence waits for permission to end. It is embedded in routine so thoroughly that it becomes invisible to those inside it. Movement follows channels already worn smooth by repetition. Information travels along paths defined long before the current moment, long before the current order. At the top of the structure, decisions are transformed into language. That language is stripped of excess and compressed into directives that can survive transmission. Ambiguity is removed not because it is dangerous, but because it is inefficient. What remains is precise enough to be carried without distortion. Precision is mistaken for accuracy. The system has learned to value one more than the other. The order descends through layers designed to prevent friction. Each layer exists to receive, confirm, and pass along. There are procedures for this, formalized and practiced until they require no conscious thought. A directive enters a layer, is acknowledged, and exits unchanged. The interval between entry and exit is minimal. Efficiency is measured by speed, not by assessment. Those positioned within the structure understand their place without being reminded. Their responsibilities are defined narrowly and enforced consistently. To question an instruction would require stepping outside that definition, and the structure offers no mechanism for doing so. There is no designated space for uncertainty. There is only a space for compliance. Communication within the structure is orderly. Messages move in one direction, confirmations in another. Lateral exchange is limited to what is operationally necessary. Context is considered extraneous. The order carries all that is required to execute. Anything beyond that is noise. The environment reflects this discipline. Workspaces are arranged for function rather than comfort. Timetables are rigid, synchronized, enforced. Deviations are recorded, corrected, and discouraged. The system rewards predictability. It depends on it. Each level of the hierarchy narrows focus further. What arrives from above is already distilled. What is passed below is distilled again. Complexity is reduced at every step, not by analysis, but by omission. Details that do not fit the directive are not challenged, they are simply excluded. The structure assumes that relevance has already been determined elsewhere. Those who transmit the order do so with confidence derived from position rather than understanding. Their authority is borrowed, not generated. It does not require justification. It requires only adherence to form. The words are delivered exactly as written because deviation would imply ownership, and ownership is not permitted. Training reinforces this pattern. From the beginning, instruction emphasizes correct response over critical engagement. Scenarios are rehearsed until reaction becomes automatic. The goal is not adaptability, but reliability. A reliable system produces the same outcome every time it is given the same input. The order is the input. Obedience is the output. The hierarchy presents itself as protective. Each layer insulates the next from responsibility beyond its scope. Decisions are made elsewhere. Consequences are abstracted. Individuals act within prescribed limits and are shielded by limits. The structure promises that correct execution absolves all other consideration. Time within the system is segmented and controlled. There are moments for action and moments for waiting. The order dictates when one ends and the other begins. When waiting is required, it is observed precisely. When action is required, it begins without delay. There is no overlap, no hesitation, no adjustment. As the order moves lower, it encounters no resistance because resistance is not anticipated. The structure was not built to accommodate it. Every element is aligned toward continuity. The order does not need to persuade, it only needs to arrive. By the time the lowest levels receive it, the order carries the full weight of the structure behind. It is no longer just a set of instructions. It is an expression of the system itself. To question it would be to question the entire arrangement that sustains daily operation. The hierarchy stands intact, efficient, and silent, and within that silence, the order continues its descent, untouched and unquestioned. Execution begins on schedule, not early, not late. The timing aligns precisely with the order's specification. Down to the smallest unit the system is designed to. Synchronization is achieved without verbal confirmation. Each component knows when to act, because it has been trained to respond to signals, not to circumstances. Movement starts simultaneously in multiple places. There is no central moment of initiation, no single point where action can be said to begin. The order unfolds through coordination rather than command. Signals are received, relayed, and acted upon in a sequence so well rehearsed that it resembles instinct. The system does not hesitate, because hesitation has been engineered out of it. Personnel perform assigned functions with practiced efficiency. Hands move to familiar positions. Instruments are adjusted to predetermined settings. Checklists are completed in the correct order, each item acknowledged, each confirmation recorded. The language used is functional and minimal. Words exist only to verify that procedure is being followed. There is no discussion of alternative. The order does not invite them. It specifies actions, not options. Each task is bounded clearly, leaving no ambiguity about responsibility. Individuals focus on execution within their assigned limits. What lies beyond those limits is irrelevant to their function. The environment responds predictably. Systems engage as designed. Indicators shift from idle to active states. Timers begin their countdowns. The rhythm of activity accelerates, but it remains controlled. Every movement is accounted for. Every response anticipated by the structure that shaped it. Communication during execution is reduced to essential. Reports are brief and standardized. Deviations are noted only if they fall outside acceptable tolerances, and even then, they are framed as technical issues rather than conceptual. The order itself remains intact, immune to interpretation. Silence fills the spaces between transmissions. It is not an absence, but a condition. Silence indicates that the system is functioning correctly. As long as procedures are followed, there is nothing to say. The lack of commentary is itself a confirmation of compliance. Those carrying out the order do not look beyond their immediate tasks. They are not expected to. Awareness is compartmentalized by design. Each role intersects with the next only where necessary to maintain. The larger pattern is obscured not by secrecy, but by structure. No single position offers a complete view. As execution continues, momentum builds. Actions completed enable subsequent actions automatically. One procedure triggers the next, creating a chain that advances without the need for further authorization. The order has moved past the point where it could be interrupted even if interruption were possible. The system values continuity over once execution is underway, stopping would require a new directive of equal authority. None arrive. The existing order remains the highest instruction in effect. Its precedence is absolute. There are moments when minor irregularities appear. Readings fluctuate within acceptable ranges. Timelines compress slightly as tasks conclude faster than anticipated. These variations are absorbed without comment. The system is designed to tolerate minor discrepancies, not to reevaluate purpose. Execution proceeds with precision that borders on indifference. The actions are correct because they conform to instruction. Whether they are appropriate is not a question the system is equipped to answer. Appropriateness lies outside procedural language. As tasks reach completion, confirmations move upward through the same channels the order once traveled downward. Each report affirms success within defined parameters. Each acknowledgement reinforces the assumption that the process is sound. By the time the final phase of execution begins, the order has fully replaced situational awareness. The actions being taken feel inevitable, not because they are understood, but because they are authorized. Authorization has become sufficient justification. The system continues forward, steady and precise. What it is moving toward no longer requires consent. The first indication is subtle. It does not announce itself as failure. It appears as variance. Small, measurable. Within margins, the system has learned to ignore a delay that corrects itself. A response that arrives slightly altered but still functional. The structure absorbs these irregularities without friction. Absorption is one of its strengths. The order remains unchanged. It continues to define priorities, timing, and sequence. Its authority is not diminished by deviation. It is insulated from it. The system interprets irregularities as environmental noise, not as signals. Noise is filtered out. Signals are acted upon only if they match established parameters. As execution advances, discrepancies accumulate. They do not converge into a single point of alarm. They disperse across the structure, appearing in different places, at different moments, each too isolated to demand attention. No individual node encounters enough information to justify escalation. The hierarchy fragments awareness by design. Reports continue to move upward. Their language remains controlled, procedural, neutral. Each report reflects only what the reporting position is authorized to observe. Context is excluded. Patterns are invisible because no single report contains enough data to reveal one. The structure receives information exactly as it was designed to. The order's rigidity becomes more pronounced as conditions shift. Adjustments that might compensate for emerging issues require discretion, and discretion has no place in the order specifies sequence. Sequence must be preserved. Alteration would constitute deviation, and deviation requires approval that is not forthcoming. There are moments when silence extends longer than expected, not long enough to trigger concern, only long enough to register subconsciously. The system does not recognize subconscious indicators. It recognizes thresholds. Thresholds have not yet been crossed. As operations continue, coordination becomes strained. Timing drifts incrementally. Dependencies tighten. Tasks that once operated independently begin to interfere with one another. These interactions are not accounted for in the order's language. The order assumes ideal conditions because it was written to function independently of circumstance. Attempts to compensate occur automatically, not deliberately. Procedures designed to maintain stability activate in response to measurable variance. These procedures operate without reference to intent. They stabilize metrics while obscuring underlying cause. The appearance of control is maintained. At several points, information surfaces that could prompt reconsideration if it were allowed to accumulate. It does not accumulate. It is distributed, categorized, and filed. Each fragment loses urgency as it is processed. By the time it reaches any level capable of modification, it no longer carries enough weight to challenge existing instruction. The order persists because nothing has formally contradicted it. No countermand has been issued. No authority has intervened. The structure interprets this absence as confirmation. Continuation is the default state. Pressure builds quietly. Resources are consumed at rates slightly higher than projected. Contingencies narrow. The system adapts by reallocating within predefined limits. These reallocations mask the strain rather than the order does not account for cumulative effect. There are moments when individuals notice that outcomes do not align with expectation. These observations remain internal. The structure provides no channel for unsolicited input during execution. Observation without authorization has no destination. It dissipates. The failure does not arrive suddenly. It unfolds incrementally, wrapped in procedure, disguised as progress. Each step forward adheres to instruction. Each step forward reduces the possibility of reversal. By the time the structure recognizes that conditions have changed materially, the order has already moved beyond the point where change is permitted. The language that governs action contains no clause for reassessment. It was not written to adapt. It was written to be followed. The system continues to execute faithfully. The flaw has become operational. The breakdown does not begin with alarm. It begins with saturation. Systems that were designed to compensate within narrow margins reach the limits of those margins almost simultaneously. The buffers that once absorbed variance are exhausted quietly, without ceremony. The order remains active. Its language still governs sequence and priority. Nothing in it acknowledges that capacity has been exceeded. Operations continue because stopping has not been authorized. The structure interprets continuation as correctness. Tasks are executed even as the conditions that made them viable deteriorate. The system does not distinguish between persistence and progress. Movement forward is treated as success, regardless of what that movement consumes. Coordination falters in ways that procedure cannot correct. Timelines collapse into one another. Dependencies fail to align. Actions that once reinforced each other now interfere directly. The order assumes separation. Reality delivers convergence. The structure responds by enforcing sequence more rigidly, not less. Discipline tightens as control slips. Communication increases in volume but not in meaning. Reports multiply, each documenting a discrete failure of function, each framed within acceptable terminology. No report identifies collapse because collapse is not a recognized category. The language of the system lacks the vocabulary to describe what is happening in aggregate. As the situation deteriorates, corrective mechanisms activate repeatedly, consuming resources faster with each cycle. These mechanisms were designed for anomalies, not for systemic failure. Their repeated activation accelerates depletion. The appearance of response replaces the possibility of recovery. There is no moment when responsibility shifts. No authority intervenes to suspend the order. The structure continues to defer upward, awaiting instruction that never arrives. The absence of new directives is interpreted as endorsement of the existing one. Silence from above is processed as stability. The consequences expand beyond the system's ability to contain them. Loss accumulates, not dramatically, but comprehensively. Functions degrade across multiple layers at once. Redundancies fail together. The structure's strength, its uniformity, becomes its weakness. When one element fails, others follow because they were designed to mirror it. There are no acts of defiance, no attempts at improvisation. Improvisation would require permission that has not been granted. Those within the system continue to operate within defined limits, even as those limits render effective action impossible. Correct behavior produces incorrect outcome. The order remains the central reference point. Even as evidence mounts that its assumptions no longer hold, its authority is not questioned. Questioning would require a rupture in hierarchy. The hierarchy remains intact. Integrity of structure is preserved at the expense of function. The collapse is not localized. It spreads through interconnected processes that depend on one another's stability. Each failure amplifies the next. The system's complexity, once a source of resilience, now accelerates breakdown. There is no single point of failure to isolate. There is only accumulation. As operations cease to produce intended results, the structure continues to demand compliance. Tasks are completed because they are required, not because they are effective. Completion becomes a ritual devoid of purpose. The order has outlived the conditions that justified it. By the time the system can no longer sustain basic operation, the collapse is total, not chaotic, but comprehensive. Every element has done exactly what it was instructed to do. Every action was correct in isolation. Together, they have produced irreversible loss. There is no climax, no decisive moment. The collapse is the sum of uninterrupted obedience. The order is still in effect when the system can no longer respond. In the period that follows, the structure does not pause. It contracts slightly, reallocates quietly, and resumes routine at a reduced scale. Forms continue to circulate. Schedules are revised. New directives appear, formatted in the same language, transmitted through the same channel. The order that governed the failure is no longer referenced directly. It is not rescinded. It simply stops appearing. Records are compiled with care. Timelines are reconstructed from logs and confirmation. Each entry is accurate within its narrow scope. Together, they form a complete account that explains nothing. The documentation preserves sequence without assigning significance. It shows what happened, not why it mattered. Those within the structure adjust without comment. Positions are filled, vacancies are absorbed. Procedures are updated in minor ways that do not alter underlying design. The hierarchy remains intact. Its legitimacy is reinforced by continuity. Change is framed as refinement rather than correction. There are no formal acknowledgments of error. Responsibility disperses across layers until it becomes untraceable. Decisions are described as necessary responses to available information. The available information is defined by what the system allowed to be seen. The circularity is not addressed. The order itself fades into administrative obscurity. It exists in archives, indexed and retrievable, but rarely accessed. Its language remains unchanged, preserved as it was issued. It is neither condemned nor defended. It is treated as a completed process, closed by time rather than resolution. Training resumes with emphasis on adherence. Lessons are abstracted into generalized principles that reinforce discipline. The failure is not named. It is implied, diffused into guidance about efficiency and clarity. The structure avoids specificity. Specificity might invite comparison. New orders begin their descent through the same pathway. They benefit from the same efficiencies, the same compression of complexity, the same insulation from context. The system demonstrates its resilience by continuing to function as designed. Survival is taken as validation. Silence settles where discussion might have occurred. It is not enforced. It is habitual. The absence of debate is interpreted as professionalism. The structure equates restraint with strength. Emotional response is unnecessary. The system has moved on. What remains of the collapse is distributed thinly across memory and record. No single element bears its weight. The structure absorbs it as background, as precedent without name. The order becomes one among many, indistinct in a lineage of directives that shaped outcomes without being shaped by them. The environment stabilizes into routine. The cadence of operation returns. Signals are sent. Confirmations are logged. Authority continues to flow downward, unimpeded. The system does not reflect. Reflection is not a function it was designed to perform. Somewhere within the archive, the order still exists, intact, complete. Its words remain precise. Its authority remains implicit. It waits in the same format as the directives will follow it. The structure and when the next order begins to move, it will do so in exactly the same way.